idealism prevails.
Make the world a better place.
Welcome to our podcast here at WIPEC. Today we have a special guest from Russia, Matthias Penkin. He studied political science at the University of Innsbruck and is about to complete his PhD. He was a student of Professor Mangot, and in 2021 he started to work for a company which is based in Moscow and Berlin. He is half Russian, half German, and now at the moment back in Germany. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
As always, I'm joined by my colleague Alexander Stipchitz, who resides in the Czech Republic. Good morning.
Dobré ráno. Good morning.
Dobré ráno.
So maybe in the beginning, tell us how your last months were for you, for leaving, when you have to leave Russia and now moving to Europe. How did this affect your work and so on?
To be honest, I started looking for new job opportunities end of last year due to death of my father, and I wanted to relocate back to Europe, but just not in a such short time, so to say. So I was kind of lucky because I've been already on the search and in between of interview processes when the war broke up, and this also for the first period of time I felt like I should speed it up as soon as possible, but then I was afraid they would make me into making wrong decisions. So I was quite so yes, basically I was looking for new jobs, and then I realized that I should do it more quickly, which brought me back to Germany as of now. But of course, on the 24th of February we were all shocked, because despite all the news, especially from the Western media, nobody was expecting those things to happen. So the life went on, to be honest, in Moscow at least. I don't know about the other regions, and I think life didn't. In the first weeks, it didn't change drastically, but in Moscow, the first days, I could only notice that people rushed to ATMs and basically emptied them. Euros, USDs, and rubles, they all were gone for like a couple of days. Then there were first restrictions about how much of a currency one can withdraw at a certain time and transfer to another country. And then the stores started to closing one after another. Stores, big companies started leaving Russia. Especially in my case, in my job, we were dependent on DHL, for instance. Well, all of those logistics started just disappearing and ceasing their presence in the country, which put an end to the usual way of making business. So yeah, after that, the business started adjusting in a way.
Well, then sure. Let's kick this off. Thank you very much for that insight. Now, a personal question. I've recently tried to be in contact with Russian colleagues of mine. They are actually more in the northwest, close to the Finnish border. And they've all been very, very reluctant to talk. Is there any risk that you are engaging in right now if you publicly talk about political aspects in your country, or is that part of the Western propaganda?
Well, there are many cases of propaganda from both sides, but the risk is definitely not part of it. It's real. Unfortunately and sadly, it can cause a lot of consequences. People who got caught during the demonstrations, they usually have to have this feeling of shadow following them. I was once detained. It was years ago during the protest against the corrupted Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev. It was never put in a protocol. I'm telling you this, you're getting in a very uncomfortable situation where all your future life depends on some, as you think in this moment, not very educated, not very intelligent person, so an officer of police who can basically decide your life. And now things got pretty much more rough in this case. So open critics, public critics might cause you problems, especially if you have quite a wide public outreach.
Thank you. May I tag a question on? Thank you.
Sure.
In the night, so basically from yesterday to today, we today have the 10th of May, Lenta.ru, also lenta.ru, was hacked or accessed by two young journalists who have substituted all the program for a whole series of rather critical and rather well-written articles. It was quickly taken down, but still it got out, and programs all over the world have been screening it this morning. Also, 3 stations of Russian state televisions have been hacked, and a message displayed there. This is interesting. How do you feel about the civil and especially also digital resistance that's going on? Because I mean, that's a pretty major move, I think. Do people see this?
We do see this. The problem, for instance, with the smart TV thing that happened yesterday. The biggest problem, not every single person in Russia has a smart TV to see that. So, and not every single person in Russia uses internet so often. Of course, those who are who got used to the gadgets, who are kind of addicted like we are today to the smartphones, of course we do get this, and we get this information quite quickly. This is why mostly those people who are who read the news in digital, not in paper, and who watch or who doesn't watch TV at all, they are more they have more information, so they are more under stress, so to say, of because of the situation. They feel, well, a mixture of feelings and about all that, I guess. So very, yeah, it's very uncomfortable feeling around. But it's also those actions, those digital hackings, those are, I guess, part of a resistance, which is a brave thing to do. Maybe it's yeah, I don't know what would be more brave, to go out on the street and try to protest there, or to do something like this. I guess more resultive, so more effective, is to do some digital thing, because as of now, and right after the first days of breakout, so days of the invasion, when people actually went on the streets, including me, those sections were abandoned by people just for a few days, and then police kicked in a quite a very rough manner. So people got, of course, scared and afraid, and they don't dare to go on a street for a full-scale protest. And also, it is hard to say how many supporters of your view do you have, because the state media and Even the independent media, and maybe it's true that the most of the population is so fooled by the propaganda that they basically mostly they are indifferent, but in case they are asked kind of an aggressive question, they react aggressively in return. It's very hard to acknowledge that your country is a complete aggressor, and it's wrong, especially when you have such a strong program of the TV propaganda, or any propaganda, state propaganda.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, from yesterday, of course, we had a big speech of Vladimir Putin on May 9th, the victory over the Nazi Germany. Well, in this speech, many people in the West and otherwise expected a lot of things, but in the end, there was not really much new content happening. So what's your take on this speech? Some expected that he will declare war on the Ukraine. Others expected to call in all the people for war and everything, but not really much happened.
The war is not of his taste, to be honest, but the mobilization, I think it was either discussed among his establishment, but there are some traces that they kind of touch waters about that. So they are testing people's reaction. So the idea of mobilization is not left alone, left for good. They might be pondering on that, but this takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. And my opinion, though, to be honest, I was the wrong one who's saying that Russia will never attack Ukraine because it's going to ruin its economy and blah, 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 whatsoever. They decided to go this way. So I can tell you that I personally think that mobilization is going to ruin the president's ratings completely, because I think that they're looking for an exit, for a leeway outside of, like, going out of the war without losing the rating, without losing the power. And you cannot do that just by leaving it be, and that's it. You cannot explain it to even in simplest words, and even in, like, yeah, you have to make up a very strong fantasy for that. So I do believe that this option they will not go for. On the other hand, Putin, as some of his former friends admit, is quite in German they have a word, he's a coward person below all of the layers of his public picture and public image. So he will not go for something where he cannot lose, where he cannot maintain his control, maintain his power. He opted for a special operation, I think, because he was told by his intelligence. Secret service, yes, intelligence officers, whatever he wanted to hear, but not the truth, because they're afraid to tell him the truth, or they just want to please him. Maybe they were not expecting this sort of a reaction. And now I think some of them got punished, and by the way, got out of the media. Just one or two features told the media called Medusa, if I'm not wrong, that the senior head of the Secret Service went under house arrest. So speaking of the speech yesterday, he was trying to kind of convince people that we're doing the right thing, persuade them that they are Nazis in the Ukraine running the country, and all the West is supporting the Nazis. And he wanted, of course, to make a parallel between the World War II and Ukraine, because this is his sacred thing. When I was a kid, World War II was a sacred thing. This topic is, of course, was kind of flew into my brains and hearts as a sacred subject, and now it got stained with those parallels, with those actions. So even for that, this is something unfair to do with the memory of the people, of course. He will not go. I mean, he didn't declare the war because it would demand a very harsh response from him, further response, and he's not ready for that. As I said, he's not the type of a person who is decisive and then he follows his own ideas. He usually on public he might say something strong, and then he has other people to do his job. But in this case, he would have to be in the headlines. He would have to be always responsible for that, and he would lose his immunity at the very end. It's a very high risk for him, and I don't think he's going to go for it.
Thank you. Then let's move from there. I mean, the interesting things I started with that the planes couldn't fly. I mean, what kind of parade is that? I'm sorry, where you don't have planes flying because of the weather. I mean, sorry. Let me take this to the meta stage here a little bit, and ask in a blunt way, how many Matthias Penkins and ladies of your kind can we expect there to be in Russia? Meaning, where does the youth stand in your opinion? I've over the years seen Putin and his minions create like a fairly absurd youth cult, not unlike the Nazis have. And from the outside, we have very little reliable news from Russia. So tell us, how afraid do we have to be that the Russian people themselves have lost grip on reality of the 21st century as their leaders have, or as I believe personally, that there is a majority of the Russian people who we should support now and try to communicate with and together get over this sad and bad memory of the 20th century?
Well, probably you meant the 21st century, but
well, the memory of the 20th century in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Okay.
Acting like in the 20th century, but we are in the 21st.
Well, yeah. The problem with all that, as I already mentioned, is that you cannot be objective in counting how many people are supporting this or that. A lot of people are afraid again, and they will not go public with their opinions. Among the people I know, majority of the people I know are against the war, against all that, against Putin. They are willing him bad things, which I will probably refrain from mentioning in this conversation. There was a big number of people, again, in my circles of communication that left Russia, at least for the time being, with no tickets back, with friends of mine are living to Georgia, to Armenia, to Budapest. So, but those are the people who have who are working for Western companies or foreign companies, and they were either forced to leave by their employers, being told that either like they will lose their jobs if they won't, or frightened by the situation. And I can tell you about the people I know that those are a majority of, especially young people. But the majority of population, for my regret and to my deepest, again, regret, I think are full with that, and they will but they are indifferent, and they will just try to move on. And in case the power will change in Russia, I think they will have to accept the fact that they were fooled at a certain point. But they are trying to justify all that, maybe in their minds, but the state propaganda helps in those cases a lot. And the problem is with all those state propaganda being over financed. So it's been investments into state propaganda have rocketed in the last 2 months. I cannot tell you the truth about that because I don't know this literally. Too many people are scared, but I'm speaking about the big cities. I'm speaking about Moscow and St. Petersburg. Those are quite progressive cities. So basically states in the state, independent in a way, independent in the way of that they show more reluctance to power. But this is not a good indicator with regard to this to the further state, to the whole Russia. It's something else. So I wouldn't be very negative nor positive about the situation. I think the time will show us what is the real support. Maybe one day when the police state's gonna fade away, and so sooner or later, of course, we will see the reaction. But we need to look out for people who are against that and who are willing to talk.
Let me just So if we say, like, in the immediate future or midterm future, we cannot expect the Russian people to rise up and do anything as a people, who then are the individuals or group who could affect the change? Of course, I think that the number of those oligarchs, I didn't know how many yachts there are around. I mean, this is unbelievable what is driving around, ships for $500 million everywhere. Anyway, so is there something that could be expected from there? Or maybe the military, which is now being embarrassed pretty publicly worldwide. Where would you think then change could come? Or Putin's going to retreat and we've got him another 20 years? Where are you on that?
It's hard to forecast on that.
Sure.
But I literally, and basically what I can expect is the oligarchs to turn against Putin. Military will not go for it because military has the thing called honor, and they are quite reluctant to lose it. So and to actually accept that they're losing it there. And also the fact that the ordinary soldiers come from a very undeveloped parts of the country, and in comparison to their usual salary of I don't know, around 300 euro, they suddenly receive so it's 25,000, well, 25 to 40,000 rubles, which is somewhere between 300 and 500, 600 euro to and if they opt for a war to go there, they receive 200,000 rubles, which is more than 2,000 euro.
8 times. Oh, whoa. Okay.
Yeah, a month. And in case they are they lose their life there, their family will get a reimbursement of at least 1 or 5 million rubles. It's hard to I don't remember those numbers and those figures, but the thing is the family also getting something, and maybe the family is getting more than the person, this man, could gain in the whole of their life by just losing it. So In case of oligarchs, they are more sensitive. They are more reluctant to just support whatever the government says them to do, or to support. In case of oligarchs, again, those are the wallets of Putin, and they're losing billions and definitely millions every day on a daily basis. And I first have been expecting them to turn against them, but I think they cannot do that, because as much as the politicians in Russia, they're also corrupt. So whoever is going to be the first one, there is a file on this person ready somewhere in some federal services, ready to act, like it once been with the Ministry of Economic Development, for instance. He got arrested out of the blue. Nobody was expecting this, of course. It was more of a show, but still. And I think there are a number of those files on those kind of people, on every single person around the president, because this is a certain token, a sacrifice that they have to do to maintain the control over the country, to have the grip over its resources, to be stained by the corruption in some way. My thought would be that at a certain point there might be so in Kremlin, you probably from the West see it as a one-person game, which is a sufficient success, an efficient success of the Russian propaganda. You see Putin and you think this is what Russia says, but the thing is, behind the curtains of Kremlin, there are clans, different groups of power, who are, of course, all dependent on the president's decision. But they also have all the freedom to do and to act however they want to in the areas in which are they entitled to, or where presidents didn't say the other way, so didn't say no. In case those groups cooperate between each other and might eventually force Putin to step down, it would be enough for the situation in Ukraine to change, because all of them are aware that Ukraine doesn't give any, well, there will be no victory in Ukraine, and even if there is a military invasion that will end up Russians marching over Kiev, this will not bring any peace to Russia, and no more money to them, to those groups of power. So they are pretty much aware which circumstances they are now, and they might be plotting. But again, I cannot put fingers on those people, exact people. There are games between the curtains which we cannot see, but something is definite. I hope something is definitely brewing there.
What's your take on the sanctions? Will they help bring down Putin's regime, or will they rather hurt the normal Russians more than they will produce in helping bringing down Putin?
As in any other sanctions, the first people who will suffer are the ordinary people. It's not the first time in the history that we're seeing that, and it's probably not the last one, sadly. Sanctions, well, any economic restrictions, they first hit the ordinary, the individuals, but not the establishment, who have piled up a lot of money, who have their yachts and villas and yachts and all sort of security around them, include the economic one. They are, I assume, not in the best shape at the moment, but they're much better than any ordinary person in Moscow or in any other, and especially in any other country, in any other place in Russia. So what helps, I think, is that Western companies leaving Russia, at least for now, and people protesting, well, people feeling an urge, but there's also a very great downside effect of all that. People who lose their jobs, who've been working with the Western companies, they cannot understand how them losing their job helps the situation. So, of course, those companies leaving Russia because they feel under pressure among their peers, because if they're staying in Russia, they are non grata and they should be sanctioned too. So they kind of have no further ways to do other than leaving Russia, because it's a kind of a trend thing now. But of course, business is reluctant to do something related to politics or concerning about that too much. So what I think, sanctions are efficient, but they're ruining the economy, and by that they're ruining the lives of the ordinary people. Those are definitely, well, freezing the reserves of the central bank of Russia abroad is definitely effective against the establishment, but yet it's difficult to get to them. And now finally they got tackled by sanctions. It's much more stricter and much more efficient than they were within the last 10 years.
I have one question that's been on my mind since last time I talked to Professor Mangold, actually before that. It is absolutely clear that the West, whatever the West is, all those generalizations are a little bit naive, I think, has made several mistakes in the lead up to this severe crisis. But it also seems to be clear that, as you said, this is a war of aggression. But the Russian people, again, that we're trying to talk about here, how is one from the West supposed to communicate? We have you now, which I'm really happy that we have somebody who actually knows something and who has just imparted some knowledge that I've never heard of. I never knew the disparity of normal people's income and the soldiers. That says a lot, and all of this information. But how can we, I'm not young anymore, but how can we together start media bases, start communication that allows us to break down this barrier still of West versus East? That to me seems so incredibly outdated, personally. But I don't have access because people are afraid. Very few speak, and then you say there's a lot of Russians who actually do not have access to the media. So the long and short question is, for you as a young Russian in the West now, what are your suggestions that we do proactively, because this won't be the last conflict, certainly not under this administration, to proactively engage to improve matters?
It's a very hard question. I think it's one of those where I could definitely say for sure that not just I don't know, but that I have not a single idea, because all of these ridiculous things that are happening have any solid solution, or at least a straightforward one. But what I can say, that the people who you can, whose reaction and who are willing to talk, willing to share their opinions, are those who are usually young ones, and they have not so many things to lose at this moment of life. I've been saddened by news that sponsorships towards Russian students, new sponsorships towards well, coming from Russia students are to be seized in a number of European countries, which is I think it's a grave mistake of so-called the West. I mean, I know what is implied by this term, as you already mentioned, but yet it is not completely true. But for a East-West resistance, this works. For a propaganda reason, it still works. Yeah, for the Cold War reality. So do not give up on the youngsters. Do not let them down in all this kind of situation. We should promote any sort of educational support of Russian students willing to go abroad and willing to study there, because those are thousands of people which have been going from Russia yearly to the West, to the East, wherever. Those are talented people which are now left alone without any chance and opportunity to progress, to develop, to see things, see something different than their usual environment and their own country. If the West will not well, again, if I say the West, implying that it's something not Russia and further to the West from Russia. So if those countries will give up on them, they will lose them at a certain point. They will lose their support. They might lose their support. I don't know. But these people are willing to leave Russia, at least for a certain period of time, to speak, to learn something new in the West or worldwide. I should probably refrain using the term the West. But they are willing to go abroad and to do something else, to study and to listen, of course, and to talk in a new language. In case they are locked within their own country, they're going to lose the practice. They're going to lose the chances. And then what happens to the person there? They switch to something else, and in those cases, those are going to be the choices that the state of Russia is offering them at this certain point. As I was a graduate from a Moscow State University, I've seen a lot of people who had no other option but going and working with the federal media or federal services even, because these ladies and boys and however they identify themselves, they were not willing to go back to their little towns somewhere far away from Moscow. And they wanted to, and they were bright-minded, of course. They are bright-minded still. But out of the reluctance, out of the no choice option, they had to opt for those things. And I know a lot of people who worked, or probably now I don't think they're still working there, who worked on those in those institutions despite their own feelings, despite their own ideas. And if at certain point of time they had an opportunity to go and study somewhere else, I think they would go for that. And I think they would even might to stay there as well, if that would be a chance. Maybe not all of them, but this is a very situation for the youngsters who didn't do anything about this war, about this situation, who didn't make any decisions, but their lives were decided for them and not in their favor.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. then I think we can wrap up this interview. I think it was very insightful. And again, I thank you for this interview, that you take your time. And as always, we will be back.
Yeah, and if you feel like it, we all guys are sitting around here in our various offices and would love to welcome you back. Or indeed, if you have and are aware of individuals from Russia that you deem to be interesting to talk to, please let us know and return, and let's try and keep some communication still going. That would be good.
Thank you very much again for inviting me, Christian, Alexander. It was a great pleasure. I will definitely love to speak with you again and to run some interviews in case, to participate in some interviews that you would be running. Regarding other Russians and other people residing there or who left the country, I will be on lookout for them. One thing, of course, is very important to remember. Even though somebody left, it doesn't always mean that they are very like ready to share their thoughts because they're afraid for their families. But I will do my thing and then get back to you, of course. And it was, of course, a great pleasure.
In this case, Mir, have peace and take care of yourself, and all the best for immediate and further future. Be well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's mutual. Thank you.
Idealism prevails.
Make the world a better place.